Heyo guys, what's happening? I hope y'all are good. It's been a long ass break, I know, but hey, I'm here. I've leveled up as well. I've got some new heat to drop on you guys in these upcoming videos, so be ready for them. Today, however, I'm going to be teaching you how to create this kind of aesthetic. Like, this is the new and improved, or the best way to create the psychedelic text that you've seen on my channel. I'm going to show you how to distort the text, how to make the colors bleed, and then how to use texture overlays to finish the piece. I'm also going to be including everything that I used to make this video down in the description, 100% free. You can go and grab that now, just down below. I already have a few videos that dropped this year that are in a pretty similar aesthetic. You probably remember them, but they just aren't it, okay? Like, a lot of time has gone by now and I've carried on making this effect. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that, and you can see probably as well that I know how to do it a lot better. So before moving on the channel, I thought I have to kind of wrap this aesthetic up and make one video showing you guys the most simple and best method. Alright, I'm gonna put the time lapse that you're watching at the moment at the end of the tutorial so that you can see the whole process, but for now, hey, let's open up Photoshop and let's get straight into it. Alright guys, so the first step is gonna be to hit that 1920 by 1080. That's the size of my monitor. It don't really matter what size you do, but it'll be helpful if you did a similar size so that everything works the same. But hey, just get your canvas open. I'm going to be doing a black background because I want to do some white text, and we're going to type out our text, okay? Alright, pick your font. I'm going to rasterize my layer. You don't have to do this necessarily. I'm going to add a stroke around the outside of the image. Now, one of the first things you'll notice with most of these effects is the text gets liquefied. So there's a few things you could do. You could select the very bottom of the text, press Ctrl T, and then just drag it down real far like that. And then once you have that, you could go into the liquefy. You can select the strength of the brush by changing the pressure, and then you can just literally drag this around however you like it to be. And then once you got that, there are a few ways of then making the color come out in it. A really simple one would be just to simply duplicate this layer, double click on the layer, and then change the channels. So if you leave just blue, then you could go Ctrl T, and then selecting Shift and Control and clicking on the bottom one, I can move it so that it's coming out at the bottom but staying the same at the top. Now you could do this twice and have one going to the left and one going to the right like that. And then if you change the channels to a different color, you'll have a different color coming out in the other direction. I'm going to use this one because it's created like 3 colors, maybe even yellow as well. Oh no, it's red, blue and purple. From here, I'm going to use the magic brush, which is a really important tool to create this effect. So how you set it up, I'm going to walk you through it. You want to use the mixer brush instead of the ordinary brush. I typically just use the default brush. I just use soft and round. You want to clean your brush, and then all of these should be 100, but if you have these two, you want to have them to 0. You also want to make sure that sample all layers is selected, and then in window and brush settings, you just want to make sure there's no spacing by turning spacing off. Now the last thing to do to make this brush work is in the adjustment section, you want to add a hue and saturation, and then turn the saturation all the way up. And then the amount that you change the hue to the left or to the right will depend on how many colors are generated when you use the brush. So I typically only do it a little bit, so this is -7. Then on the layer right underneath the hue and saturation, we'll make our new layer. So once we've selected this new layer, it's got nothing on it, but because we've got sample all layers on, it's going to melt all of the layers underneath it. So you'll see when I start to click it, it just starts to melt. Now you can do so many things with this. I recommend playing around with it for a while. It's probably the easiest way of making your colors kind of distort and melt, right? So as you start to drag it down, you'll see that they just begin to bleed. It's a very psychedelic effect. It's very cool once you've learned how to use it. So I quite like that. I'm going to keep it quite simple for the sake of this tutorial. The only thing I don't like is how it's made the top of the text look. So using a big eraser, I'm just going to click a few times just to minimize that effect a little bit. Right, now we probably want to carry on using the smudge tool and the liquify tool to make this bottom part look really cool, but before doing that I'm actually going to add the texture now, so that when we liquify it, we're liquifying the texture and the typography. So you can go ahead and download the pack that I've got in the description with all of the texture that I made for the time lapse at the start of this video, or you can use a website like Unsplash and just type in anything like paper or grunge or texture, and you're going to get loads of really cool free to use images, and I'm going to show you how to apply those now. So I've got all of my textures here at the ready, and I really like this one here, so I'm going to give this one a go. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to make it nice and big so that it covers our whole image. I'm then going to rasterize it. I feel like it needs a little bit of sharpening, so I'm going to go ahead, duplicate it, sharpen more, and then just lower the opacity until it's perfect. Right, once I've connected those layers so we only have one, I'm going to go down the blending options until we get one that I think sits nicely on top of the image. You're going to notice that every single effect interacts with the image very slightly differently, and this is what makes it so cool. So I'm a fan of overlay. I think this looks really nice, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the eraser to get rid of the bottom parts of it so that it kind of goes from like pixely into smooth liquid, as if it really is melting. Right, now from here I'm going to take all of my layers, duplicate them, and whilst they're still selected I'm going to merge them all together. I'm going to do it once more just so that we have that saved underneath. And now I'm going to teach you guys how to use a few effects. So the smudge tool is a bit like the liquify tool, but you basically just kind of blur things a little bit as well as smudging them. You see what I mean? You definitely want to learn how to use this if you're trying to get into like psychedelic typography. Like I said, it's kind of like the liquify tool in terms of how you move things around, but it does also blur things. I'm going to now duplicate that one. I like to duplicate layers instead of just saving loads of documents, so then you can open the document and just peel back your layers to go back instead of pressing undo, you know. Right, now I'm going to liquify. Now I'm going to liquify and just play with this a little bit more. You see the image ends here, but I can just keep going down further if I decide that I want to make this really big, and then you can just make your canvas bigger and reveal all of the stuff that you've made. I think it looks cool for this liquid effect to either be getting bigger or smaller, so if you just keep making your brush bigger, then it's going to make it look like the lines are getting bigger and closer to the screen. There's no like right or wrong way of doing this, obviously. You know, get angry with the paintbrush, smack it around a little bit like Van Gogh used to do, and you might make some magic. You know, that's how magic is made. You never know what you're gonna create. Alright guys, that's basically it. You know, the final thing I'll say is you could duplicate this, and then you could go filter, and then you could go sharpen more, and then you can kind of blur different parts of it out. So some bits are like crisp and then some bits are blurry. It might help the image pop out a little bit, and then the only thing left would be potentially adding more textures, but you guys can play around with that. All you do is change the blending options. Drop a like if this video helped, guys. Up next on the channel I've got a psychedelic collage time lapse that I spent a few hours making. I think it's really cool, and it's kind of something that I've never really seen before. It's like I've built a digital collage by just blending and blurring images together, so I thought that would be a really cool time lapse. It could potentially, if you guys like it, be a tutorial in the future. Anyway guys, thank y'all for not unsubscribing during my giant break. My computer actually broke, so I couldn't make any content on it, and at the same time as that, the computer I was previously using slowed down to a point of non-existence. Like I couldn't do anything on it, so I had to kind of wait for everything to get fixed. Point is, your boy is back and I'm ready to make some more content, so stay tuned for that. Alright, thank y'all for watching, take care of yourselves, and until the next video, that is me out. Peace out guys.